The cosmic collision. The space station Helios gleamed like a jeweled ring against the backdrop of swirling cosmic dust. Its massive rotating sections created artificial gravity for the 10,000 souls who called it home, representing over 30 different species from across the known galaxy. The station served as both diplomatic outpost and military stronghold for the Galactic Alliance, a precarious position at the edge of contested space. Commander Theo Jensen stepped off the transport shuttle, his duffel bag slung casually over one shoulder. He took a deep breath, adjusting to the slightly metallic taste of recycled station air. After 15 years of active field duty in the Alliance Special Forces, this assignment as the new combat instructor felt like a demotion, though his superiors had called it a strategic reassignment. Commander Jensen, called a voice to his right. A tall, willowy being with pale blue skin approached. "Welcome to Helios Station. I'm Officer Yale, your liaison during your orientation period." Theo shook the three-fingered hand offered to him, nodding the strength in the delicate-looking appendage. "Thanks for meeting me. Looking forward to getting settled. Of course, your quarters are prepared and Colonel Brandt wishes to meet with you after you've had time to refresh." Yale gestured toward one of the transport tubes. "If you'll follow me." A commotion erupted near the docking bay entrance. A crowd had formed around what appeared to be some kind of altercation. Theo's military instincts kicked in, and he found himself moving toward the disturbance before Yale could stop him. "Commander, I wouldn't recommend," Yale began, but Theo was already pushing through the crowd. In the center of the circle stood the most striking alien woman Theo had ever seen. Her skin was a deep purple with an iridescent quality that shifted in the light. Jet black hair was pulled back in intricate braids that accentuated her angular features and the delicate ridges that framed her face. She wore a fitted battle suit of some unfamiliar material that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. But it was her eyes that captured Theo's attention, golden with vertical pupils that currently blazed with fury as she faced off against a hulking reptilian being who towered over her by at least 2 feet. "Touch me again, Draven, and you'll lose the hand," she snarled, her voice melodic despite the venom infusing it. The reptilian, Draven apparently, laughed, a guttural sound that revealed rows of serrated teeth. "Still so hostile, Nyx. One day you'll learn your place here." "And it will never be beneath you," she replied, her hands hovering near what Theo recognized as weapon holsters at her sides. Before he could think better of it, Theo stepped into the circle. "Everything all right here?" he asked, his voice casual but carrying the unmistakable authority of command. Both aliens turned to look at him, surprise momentarily replacing the anger on their faces. "Mind your business, human," Draven growled, his scaled skin darkening to an angry orange. "This doesn't concern your species." The woman Nyx narrowed her golden eyes as she assessed Theo. "I don't need assistance," she said coldly. "I can handle this myself." Theo shrugged, just trying to keep the peace. "I'm new here and I'd prefer not to witness violence during my first hour on station." "Then walk away," Nyx suggested, her tone making it clear it wasn't a suggestion. Instead, Theo turned to Draven. "The lady asked you to back off. Seems like a reasonable request." Draven's face contorted in rage. "You humans always interfere where you don't belong." He pointed a clawed finger at Nyx. "This isn't over." Then he stomped away, the crowd parting quickly to let him pass. As the spectators dispersed, Nyx turned her full attention to Theo. Up close, she was even more stunning and more intimidating. The ridges along her temples pulsed faintly with a bioluminescent glow. "I didn't request your intervention," she said, her golden eyes flashing. "And I'm not a lady. I am Nyx Valani's Razkai warrior and I fight my own battles." Theo held up his hands in a placating gesture. "No offense intended. Where I come from, it's customary to offer assistance when someone might be in trouble." "Well, you're not on Earth anymore," she retorted. "On Helios, you do well to mind your own affairs." She looked him up and down, her expression unreadable. "You're Alliance military." "Commander Theo Jensen, Alliance Special Forces," he confirmed with a nod. "Just arrived." Something flickered in her eyes, recognition, perhaps, or wariness. "The new combat instructor, I should have guessed." She crossed her arms over her chest. "Well, Commander, consider this your first lesson on Helios. Not everyone wants human interference, no matter how well-intentioned." With that, she turned and walked away, moving with a predator's grace, confident, powerful, and dangerous. Yale appeared at Theo's side, wringing their hands nervously. "I tried to warn you, Commander, that's Nyx Valani's. She's problematic." "Problematic how?" Theo asked, still watching as Nyx disappeared into the station's main thoroughfare. She's one of our best combat specialists, but she has issues with authority, especially human authority. The Alliance assigned her here after she caused too much trouble elsewhere. Yale lowered their voice. She's brilliant but volatile. Most people keep their distance. Theo nodded thoughtfully. I see. And what's her story with the reptilian, Draven? He's been pursuing her since she arrived, can't seem to take no for an answer. Yale shook their head. Not that she needs protection. Last month she put 3 security officers in medical during what was supposed to be a friendly training exercise. Sounds like someone I should get to know, Theo said with a slight smile. Yale's eyes widened. I wouldn't recommend that, Commander. Really, I wouldn't. But Theo was already making mental notes. As the new combat instructor for the station's security forces, he'd likely be working with this Nyx person, and something told him their paths would cross again very soon. Come on, he said to Yale, hefting his duffel bag. Show me to my quarters. I've got a feeling tomorrow is going to be interesting. The next morning, Theo arrived early at the combat training facility, an impressive space with various training zones, simulation chambers, and a diverse arsenal that would make any military specialist envious. He spent some time familiarizing himself with the equipment, noting both Earth-standard gear and more exotic weapons from across the Alliance. Commander Jensen, a deep voice called. Theo turned to see a broad-shouldered man with salt-and-pepper hair approaching. Colonel Brandt, I'm head of security here on Helios. They shook hands, the colonel's grip firm and appraising. Good to have you aboard, Commander. Your reputation precedes you. Hopefully in a good way, Theo replied with a slight smile. The best, that's why we requested you specifically. Colonel Brandt gestured around the facility. We've got some of the finest security specialists in the Alliance stationed here, but they need someone with real combat experience to whip them into shape. As they spoke, security personnel began filing into the training area, a diverse group representing at least a dozen different species. Theo scanned their faces, noting their postures and movements, automatically assessing potential strengths and weaknesses. His gaze stopped when he spotted a familiar figure. Nyx Vellani stood apart from the others, leaning against a wall with her arms crossed. Unlike yesterday, she was dressed in form-fitting black training gear that accentuated her athletic build. Her golden eyes met his, and she gave him a challenging smirk. Colonel Brandt followed his gaze. Ah, I see you've noticed our resident troublemaker. Nyx is exceptional but difficult. She's been through 4 instructors already. What happened to them? Theo asked, though he could guess. 2 requested transfers, 1 quit, and 1 is still recovering from what Nyx claims was an accidental injury during sparring. The colonel sighed. She's the best fighter we have, but her attitude. I'll handle it, Theo assured him. The colonel nodded, then addressed the assembled group. Attention, this is Commander Theo Jensen, your new combat instructor. He's one of the Alliance's finest with 15 years of field experience. You will give him your full respect and cooperation. He gave Nyx a pointed look at this last part, which she answered with an innocent smile. After the colonel departed, Theo stepped forward. Good morning, I'm not big on speeches, so let's get straight to it. I need to assess your current skill levels. We'll start with basic hand-to-hand combat drills, then move on to weapons training. He paired them off for sparring, deliberately leaving Nyx for last. When everyone else was engaged, he approached her. Ready to show me what you've got? He asked. Nyx pushed off from the wall, stretching her arms above her head in a way that made her training top ride up slightly, revealing a glimpse of her toned midriff. Are you sure you're up for it, Commander? I wouldn't want to damage Alliance property on your first day. I appreciate your concern, Theo replied dryly, but I think I'll survive. They moved to an empty mat, and Nyx immediately dropped into a fighting stance, balanced, poised, perfect. Theo mirrored her, nodding the predatory gleam in her eyes. Standard rules, he said. First to pin their opponent for 3 seconds wins. Nyx's lips curved into a smile that was all teeth. After you, Commander. The training facility on Helios Station was about to witness its first battle of wills, and neither combatant intended to lose. Theo didn't hesitate. He feinted left, then moved right, testing Nyx's reflexes. She responded instantly, blocking his probing strikes with ease. They circled each other, exchanging quick blows that were more exploratory than damaging. Is this all the famous Commander Jensen has to offer? Nyx taunted, her voice low enough that only he could hear. Theo smiled, just warming up. He increased his speed and intensity, driving her back with a series of precise strikes. Nyx countered, her movements fluid and graceful. They were evenly matched, each anticipating the other's moves in an intricate dance of attack and defense. The other pairs had stopped their own sparring to watch the display. Theo was vaguely aware of murmurs of appreciation from the onlookers, but his focus remained entirely on Nyx. She was good, better than good. Her technique was flawless, but there was something wild and unpredictable about her style that made her dangerous. Just when he thought he had her pattern figured out, she'd change it, keeping him constantly on his toes. As they fought, Theo noticed something else, a heat building between them that had nothing to do with physical exertion. Each time their bodies connected, there was a spark, an electric current that passed between them. From the slight widening of Nyx's golden eyes, he could tell she felt it too. Finally, after several intense minutes, Theo saw his opening. When Nyx lunged forward, he sidestepped, caught her arm, and used her own momentum to flip her onto her back. Before she could recover, he was on top of her, pinning her wrists above her head. Their faces were inches apart, both of them breathing hard. Nyx's black hair had come partially loose from its braids and framed her face like a dark halo. Her golden eyes burned with a mixture of frustration and something else, something that made Theo's heart rate spike. 1, 2, 3, he counted, his voice huskier than he intended. I win. For a moment, Nyx didn't move, her body tense beneath his, and then, to his surprise, she laughed, a genuine sound of delight that transformed her face. Not bad, human, she conceded, not bad at all. Theo released her wrists and stood, offering her a hand up. After a brief hesitation, she took it, her skin warm against his. You're pretty good yourself, he said. With a little refinement, you could be exceptional. I'm already exceptional, she retorted, but there was no real heat in her words. The rest of the training session passed without incident, although Theo was acutely aware of Nyx's presence throughout. When it ended, he dismissed the group, but Nyx lingered behind. Same time tomorrow, Commander, she asked, toweling off her neck. Looking forward to it, he replied. She nodded and turned to leave but paused at the door. By the way, your technique is solid, but you telegraph your left hook, might want to work on that. With a wink, she was gone. Later that evening, Theo found himself in the station's recreation area, a large space designed to resemble an earth park, complete with artificial grass, trees, and even a small lake. He sat on a bench, enjoying the relative quiet after the intensity of the day. Movement caught his eye and he spotted Nyx across the park, sitting alone by the lake. She seemed different somehow, softer, more vulnerable than the fierce warrior he'd sparred with earlier. She was gazing at the water, lost in thought, one hand absently playing with a strand of her black hair. Without consciously deciding to, Theo found himself walking toward her. Mind if I join you? He asked as he approached. Nyx looked up, surprise briefly flashing across her features before her usual guarded expression returned. Free station, do what you want. Theo sat beside her, leaving a respectful distance between them. For a moment, they simply watched the simulated water ripple under the environmental system's gentle breeze. You fought well today, he finally said. Your technique is unique, not Alliance standard. Nyx snorted softly. That's because I wasn't trained by your Alliance. Razkai combat methods, I'm guessing. He'd encountered the term in Alliance briefings but had never met a practitioner before. She turned to look at him, her golden eyes evaluating. You know about Razkai fighting styles. I've studied most major combat traditions during my career. Formidable opponents, he smiled slightly, though none quite as skilled as you. A hint of pride flickered across her face. Flattery won't make me go easier on you tomorrow, Commander. Wouldn't dream of it, and please call me Theo when we're off duty. Nyx hesitated, then nodded. Theo, his name sounded exotic in her slightly accented voice. You're not what I expected. Oh, and what did you expect? Another arrogant human officer who thinks the Alliance way is the only way. She shrugged one shoulder. The kind who believes Razkai are just hot-tempered savages who need to be civilized. Theo leaned back, stretching his long legs out in front of him. I've been to too many worlds and met too many species to believe any one culture has all the answers. Besides, he added with a wry smile, we humans were pretty savage ourselves not too long ago. That earned him a genuine laugh, a melodic sound that transformed her face. At least you admit it, most humans I've met act like they invented civilization. We're a young species still figuring things out, but we're quick learners. He studied her profile as she gazed back at the water. So what brought you to Helios? I get the impression this isn't your first choice of assignment. Nyx was quiet for so long that Theo thought she wouldn't answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer than he'd heard before. I was difficult on my last posting. My commander said I needed to learn to work with other species if I wanted to advance. her lips twisted in a sardonic smile. Apparently, I have anger management issues. Do you? Theo asked. She shot him a look. What do you think? I think you're passionate and direct. Some people can't handle that. Nix's expression softened slightly. That's a diplomatic way of putting it. So why did you join the Alliance forces in the first place? Razkai isn't even a full member world yet, is it? She tensed, and Theo immediately sensed he'd touched on something sensitive. That's a long story. I've got time. Before she could respond, a harsh voice interrupted them. Well, isn't this cozy? Draven loomed over them, his massive scaled form blocking the artificial sunlight. Two equally burly aliens flanked him. The human and the exile sitting by the lake, how romantic. Theo felt Nick stiffen beside him. Walk away, Draven, she warned, her voice dangerously low. Draven ignored her, focusing on Theo instead. You should know, human, that she's damaged goods, exiled from her own world for. Nyx was on her feet in an instant. Shut your mouth before I shut it permanently. Theo stood more slowly, positioning himself slightly between them. This isn't the place for this conversation, Draven. Stay out of it, Commander, Nyx hissed. This is between me and him. Draven laughed, the sound ugly and mocking. Listen to her, always so eager to fight. Is that how you solve all your problems, Nyx, with violence, just like on Razkai? Theo saw something flash in Nyx's eyes, not just anger but pain. Whatever Draven was referring to, it had struck a nerve. Last warning, Nyx said, her hands curling into fists. Or what? Draven taunted. You'll attack me in front of an Alliance officer. Go ahead, prove what a savage you really are. What happened next was so fast that even Theo, with his combat training, barely followed it. Nyx launched herself at Draven, a blur of purple skin and black hair, but Draven was ready for her. He sidestepped her attack and struck out with his tail, sending her crashing into a decorative rock formation. Theo heard a sickening crack and Nyx's cry of pain. He reacted instantly, moving toward Draven with cold precision. Big mistake, he said quietly. Draven's two companions moved to intercept him, but they were no match for Theo's training. He disabled them with two efficient strikes, leaving them groaning on the ground. Draven's smug expression faltered as Theo advanced on him. You want to fight someone? Fight me. Theo's voice was calm, but his eyes promised retribution. Draven hesitated, then lunged forward with a roar. Theo sidestepped, much as Draven had done to Nyx, but instead of striking back, he delivered a precise blow to what he hoped was a sensitive nerve cluster in the reptilian's neck. The effect was immediate. Draven froze, his eyes wide with shock as his limbs refused to respond. Pressure point, Theo explained conversationally. Temporary paralysis. You'll regain movement in about 20 minutes. Security will be here soon. He leaned in close. If you ever come near her again, the paralysis won't be temporary. Understood. Draven's eyes burned with hatred, but he managed a small nod. Theo immediately turned his attention to Nyx, who was trying to stand, her face contorted in pain. Blood, darker and more purple-tinged than human blood, seeped through a tear in her pants just above her knee. Let me help you, he said, moving to her side. I don't need, she began, but her leg buckled when she put weight on it. Theo caught her before she could fall. You were saying. Nyx glared at him but allowed him to support her weight. Fine, but I can make it to medical on my own. I'm sure you can, but humor me. He helped her to a bench. Let me take a look first. After a moment of hesitation, Nyx nodded. Theo knelt in front of her and gently rolled up her pant leg to examine the wound. It was a nasty gash, but not dangerously deep. The rock caught you just right, he said, or wrong, depending on your perspective. It's nothing, Nyx insisted, though she winced when Theo probed gently around the wound. I've got a medkit in my quarters, it's closer than the medical bay. He looked up at her. If you trust me. Their eyes met and something passed between them, a current of electricity that had nothing to do with her injury. Nyx swallowed visibly. Lead the way, Commander. Theo's quarters were standard Alliance officer accommodations, functional but comfortable, with personal touches that hinted at the man behind the uniform. A few physical books lined a small shelf and a worn leather jacket hung by the door. The space was meticulously organized, reflecting his military discipline. Sit here, he said, guiding Nyx to the edge of his bed. I'll get the medkit. Nyx perched awkwardly, trying not to bleed on his pristine gray bed cover. She watched as Theo moved efficiently around the room, gathering supplies. There was something captivating about his movements, purposeful yet graceful, powerful but controlled. "You didn't have to handle Draven," she said abruptly. "I could have managed." Theo returned with a compact medical kit and knelt before her. "I know you could have, but sometimes it's okay to let someone else fight your battles." He looked up, his blue eyes meeting hers, even for a Razkai warrior. Something in his gaze made her heart beat faster. No one on the station had ever looked at her like that, like they saw beyond her fierce exterior to the person beneath. "This might sting," he warned, applying an antiseptic solution to her wound. Nyx hissed but didn't flinch. "I've had worse." "I don't doubt it." His hands were surprisingly gentle as he cleaned the gash. "So what did Draven mean about you being exiled from Razkai?" Nyx tensed. "You don't miss much, do you?" "Part of my job." His fingers continued their careful work, never pausing despite the sudden tension between them. She remained silent for so long that Theo thought she wouldn't answer. Finally, she sighed. "I killed someone important, the son of a high counselor." Theo's hands stilled momentarily, then resumed their task. "I'm guessing there's more to the story than that." "He deserved it," Nyx said flatly. "He was using his father's position to take advantage of females from lower castes. When he tried it with my sister," her voice hardened, "I challenged him to ritual combat. I won. And they exiled you for that, for defending your sister." "Razkai justice isn't like human justice. The high castes make the rules and the rest of us follow them." Bitterness crept into her voice. "The Alliance offered me a position. It was either that or execution." Theo finished cleaning the wound and began applying a regenerative gel. "That explains a few things. Like why I don't play well with authority figures." A wry smile twisted her lips. "Like why you fight like someone with something to prove." His fingers brushed against her skin as he applied the bandage, sending an unexpected shiver up her spine. "And why you keep everyone at arm's length." Nyx swallowed hard. No one had ever read her so accurately before. It was unnerving and strangely exhilarating. "There," Theo said, securing the bandage. "Good as new in a day or two. The regenerative compounds in this gel work faster than standard medical treatments." "Thank you," Nyx said softly, the words feeling foreign on her tongue. She couldn't remember the last time she'd thanked anyone for anything. Theo remained kneeling before her, his hands resting lightly on either side of her injured leg. The air between them seemed to thicken, charged with an energy neither could deny. "You're welcome," he replied, his voice deeper than before. Their eyes locked and Nyx felt something inside her shift, a wall crumbling, a defense mechanism failing. Without conscious thought, she leaned forward, closing the distance between them. Their lips met hesitantly at first, then with growing hunger. Theo's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb stroking the curve of her cheek. Nyx had been kissed before, but never like this, never with such tenderness mixed with passion. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing heavily. Nyx's heart hammered against her ribs and her skin felt feverish. "That was," she began. "Unexpected," Theo suggested, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "I was going to say not terrible," Nyx replied with a smirk, though her flushed cheeks betrayed her affected nonchalance. Theo laughed, the sound warming her from the inside out. High praise indeed. He rose from his kneeling position to sit beside her on the bed, their shoulders touching. The contact sent another wave of heat through Nyx's body. "I don't usually do this," she admitted quietly. "Kiss humans." "Kiss anyone," she turned to face him. "Razkai don't, we're not demonstrative." "Vulnerable," he offered. "Showing desire is considered a weakness," she corrected. Theo reached out, tucking a strand of black hair behind her ear. "And what do you consider it?" Instead of answering, Nyx kissed him again, more boldly this time. Her hands explored the contours of his chest, feeling the solid muscle beneath his shirt. Theo responded in kind, his fingers tangling in her hair, his other hand tracing the curve of her waist. What followed was a revelation for Nyx, a discovery of sensations and emotions she'd never allowed herself to experience. Theo's touch was both reverent and passionate, as if he understood instinctively what she needed. For the first time in her life, Nyx surrendered control, allowing herself to be guided by the feelings coursing through her. Their union was like a dance, sometimes tender, sometimes fierce, always in perfect harmony. In Theo's arms, Nyx found a freedom she hadn't known existed, a release from the rigid constraints she'd lived under for so long. As the space station continued its silent rotation against the stars, two beings from worlds apart found unexpected connection in each other's embrace, healing wounds far deeper than the one that had brought them together.